They targeted a homeless old man. They thought he was easy prey. But they had no idea. They were messing with a legendary boxer. The story is inspired by a true event and opens with Eric Kernan Jr., a struggling sports reporter attending a local boxing match. Eric is looking for his next big break, but while the crowd is cheering inside the arena, a different kind of fight is happening in the alleyway outside. A group of drunk young men are harassing a homeless man who calls himself Champ. They're mocking him, laughing as they push around a man who looks like he has nothing left. But this man isn't just a drifter. He claims he's Bob Satterfield, a legendary heavyweight who was once ranked number 3 in the entire world. Eric walks out to his car and catches the group mid-assault. He doesn't just stand by, he steps in and shuts them down, sending the bullies packing. As the dust settles, the old man introduces himself again, repeating the same line, "Battlin' Bob Satterfield, number 3 in the world." Eric is skeptical, but he gives the man some cash, noticing how much it clearly means to him. Later that night, a realization hits Eric like a left hook. If this man really is the famous Bob Satterfield, then everyone in the boxing world is wrong, because most people believe the champ died years ago. The next morning at the office, the pressure is on. Eric's editor, Ralph Metz, rips into his latest article, calling it dull and uninspiring. To make matters worse, Metz compares him to his late father, Eric Kernan Sr., who was a legendary sportscaster. Eric hates the comparison. He doesn't want to live in his father's shadow, he wants to build his own name. Desperate for a killer story, Eric scores an interview with Bing Whiteley, the head of a major weekly magazine. Eric pitches his resurrecting the champ idea, a deep dive into a fallen legend living on the streets. Bing is hooked instantly. He tells Eric that if the story is as good as the pitch, he's hired. Eric knows he's sitting on a goldmine, but he needs proof. He recruits Polly, a research assistant, to dig into the 1950s heavyweight archives. He keeps the mission top secret, making sure his old boss, Metz, never finds out. The investigation has officially begun, and Eric is ready to bring a legend back to life. Later that night, Eric spends time with his 6-year-old son, Teddy. Eric and his wife, Joyce, both work at the Denver Times, but they've been separated for a while. Teddy is obsessed with sports and looks up to his dad like a hero, believing Eric is best friends with every superstar in the city. During dinner, Eric tells them about the Champ project. He knows he's onto something huge, but he has to make sure the old man is still in that alley. Eric returns to the shadows to pitch the project to Champ. At first, the old fighter is hesitant. He's been burned by the world too many times to trust a reporter with a notepad. Eric leaves his business card, and that's when Champ notices the last name, Kernan. The mood shifts instantly. Champ remembers Eric's father, the legendary sportscaster. He recalls a broadcast from Christmas 1953 where Kernan Sr. publicly called him a disappointment to the sport. It's a gut punch for Eric, realizing his father's words are still echoing in this man's head 50 years later. To bridge the gap, Eric takes Champ to a live boxing match. While the young prospects trade blows, Champ sits back and calmly predicts the winner with surgical precision. Eric is stunned. He asks how he knew, and Champ breaks down the footwork and the rhythm of the fight in a way only a true master could. That night, Eric levels with him. He tells Champ his career is on the line and he needs this story to survive. Champ finally relents and starts to peel back the layers. He shares the trauma of his childhood, showing Eric a massive scar on his back left by an abusive father. When Eric gets home, he digs through the archives and listens to that 1953 Christmas broadcast, finally hearing the coldness in his father's voice that Champ never forgot. Driven by Champ's insights, Eric writes the article of a lifetime. The next day, the office is buzzing. Even his tough-as-nails editor, Metz, gives him a nod of approval. Eric finds Champ, shows him the front page, and treats him to dinner at a local shelter. As the tape recorder rolls, Champ recounts the high-stakes world of 1950s boxing. He talks about his brutal knockout loss to the legendary Ezid Charles. He explains how he tried to disappear, working as a stable boy in Sioux City, only for his identity to be discovered. He was forced back into the ring for unsanctioned underground fights, competing so often that his body simply gave out. In one final, devastating match, he was knocked out so badly it permanently damaged his vision. The tragedy of the Champ's career starts to come into focus. He explains to Eric that after his vision was damaged, he could no longer fight, and his corrupt manager vanished with every cent they had earned. Left with nothing, Champ was forced to hitchhike across the country back to Denver. Eric's researcher, Polly, finally delivers a folder on the 1950s boxing scene. The records are thin, but she finds something better. Rare footage of one of Champ's old bouts. Eric watches the grainy tape with Joyce, pointing out the distinct, jagged scar on the boxer's back. "That's him," Eric whispers. "That's my Champ." But when Eric goes to share the news, he finds the old man bruised and beaten again. The reality of Champ's life on the streets hits Eric hard. He pulls the man into a local electronics shop, sits him down in front of a TV, and hits play. As the footage rolls, Champ is mesmerized. For a few minutes, the alleyways and the hunger disappear. He is a king again, reliving his glory days in the ring. Overwhelmed, Champ walks out into the night. Eric follows, worried he's overstepped, but Champ isn't angry, he's moved. He asks Eric if he has a son. When Eric says yes, Champ looks him in the eye and says, "I hope your boy grows up to do something as meaningful for someone as you just did for me." The bond deepens as they drive through the quiet suburbs. Champ points out a house where his second wife, Betty, lives. She kicked him out years ago. Eric opens up about his own separation from Joyce, finding a strange common ground with a man who has lost everything. Champ reveals his greatest heartbreak. His son, Bob Jr., tells the world his father is dead because he can't forgive him for walking out on the family. In the next scene, Eric is at lunch with his son, Teddy, when NFL legend John Elway walks in. Teddy, still believing his dad is a big shot, who knows every athlete in town, begs to go say hi. Eric tries to play it cool, but the situation gets awkward fast. As they leave, Teddy calls him out, noticing that for a guy with famous friends, Eric never actually introduces him to any of them. Wanting to be the hero his son thinks he is, Eric makes a choice. He doesn't take Teddy to see a superstar, he takes him to the park to meet the champ. Seeing his son and the old legend bond over sports brings a rare moment of pure joy to all of them. For a moment, the lies and the pressure don't matter. Back at the office, the momentum is unstoppable. Polly is pulling out all the stops, even arranging a meeting with LaMotta, the last living legend to ever step into the ring with the champ. She also hands Eric the phone number for Bob Jr., the champ's estranged son. But when Eric calls to verify the story, the reaction is cold. Bob Jr. doesn't want to talk, he snaps at Eric and slams the phone down. Despite the red flag, the professional world is calling. Bing Whiteley introduces Eric to Fred, a high-level publisher who is blown away by the Satterfield story. He wants it on the front page of the magazine, but there's a catch, it has to be finished by Monday. Eric, smelling a Pulitzer, doesn't hesitate. "I can manage that," he says, effectively betting his life on the deadline. Eric returns to the alley with a professional photographer to capture the face of the resurrected champ. He even lets the old man speak to LaMotta over the phone. Hearing a voice from his past makes the old man beam with a joy Eric has never seen. The magazine hits the stands, and it's an overnight sensation. The story is everywhere. Editorial giants are calling Eric, offering him the world. His old boss, Metz, is fuming that Eric took the scoop elsewhere, but Eric doesn't care, he's finally out of his father's shadow. He even gets a call from Showtime, offering him a dream gig in Las Vegas. That night, the celebration is legendary. While dancing, Polly hints that she wants to be more than just his researcher, but Eric's heart is still with Joyce. He steps away to invite her to the party, thinking his life is finally perfect. But the morning light brings a cold reality. Eric gets a call from Ike Epstein, a veteran of the boxing world. Ike drops a bombshell that stops Eric's heart. Bob Satterfield has been dead for 20 years. Disturbed and desperate, Eric confronts the man in the alley. He demands to see some ID, any proof of who he is. But the old man has nothing. No license, no birth certificate, just a story. Eric rushes back to Ike and plays the grainy footage of the old fight, pointing out the jagged scar on the boxer's back as the ultimate proof. Ike looks at the screen and sighs. He didn't just watch the fights, he lived them. He identifies the match immediately, it's a bout against a fighter named Kincaid. Then comes the knockout blow, the boxer with the scar isn't Satterfield. It's Kincaid. The man Eric resurrected isn't the hero the world thinks he is. He's the man who lost. The realization that his champ is actually Kincaid, a man who lived his entire life in a legend's shadow, shatters Eric. He turns to Joyce, desperate for a way to fix the wreckage of his career. She gives him the only advice that matters: act as if Teddy is always watching. Eric travels to Las Vegas for a high-profile assignment, interviewing a major fight winner on national TV. On the outside, he looks like a superstar, and the network is so impressed they offer him a dream contract. But Eric can't enjoy the win. He knows he's living a lie. He returns home and makes the toughest call of his life. He decides to tell Bing and the magazine the truth. But before he can come clean, the world strikes first. He walks into the office to find a literal firing squad: Bing, his old boss Metz, and Bob Satterfield Jr.'s legal team. They aren't just angry, they are suing Eric for every dime he has for dragging the real Satterfield's name through the mud. To make matters worse, Metz informs him that Joyce will be dragged into the investigation too. Eric tracks down the old man in the alley. He hands over the thousands of dollars donated by the public, but the kindness ends there. He confronts him, demanding to know why he lied. When the old man finally admits he's Kincaid, Eric snaps. A fight breaks out, and despite his age, the old fighter's instincts take over. He knocks Eric unconscious with a single, perfectly timed punch. Eric wakes up in the hospital, ready to press charges. But Joyce steps in with the cold, hard truth. She reminds Eric that the old man never spoke to another reporter for 50 years. He only talked to him. He was protecting Eric's scoop, because Eric was the first person to treat him like a human being. She urges him to stop being a victim and start being a man, to forgive the champ. Later that day, Eric walks into the high-stakes settlement meeting with Bob Satterfield Jr. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't hide behind his sources. He looks the son of the legend in the eye and offers a sincere apology, promising to set the record straight. Bob Jr. sees the sincerity in Eric's eyes and agrees to drop the lawsuit on one condition. Eric must tell the world that the real Bob Satterfield wasn't just a fighter, he was a good man and a great father. But the hardest conversation is still to come. Eric sits down with his son, Teddy, and drops the big shot act. He admits he lied about his famous friends and comes clean about the article. For the first time, Eric isn't trying to be a hero, he's just being a dad. And in that moment of honesty, he finally earns the respect he's been chasing his whole life. Back in the alley, the cycle of violence returns. The same drunk bully from earlier finds the old man and starts the harassment again. In a moment of fading memory, the old fighter mistakes the bully for Rocky Marciano, a legend he once sparred with. The bully lands a strike, but the warrior's muscle memory takes over. He delivers one last, perfect knockout, putting the punk on the pavement. But the victory is short-lived. The champ passes away shortly after, his body finally giving out after a lifetime of taking hits. The film concludes with a somber funeral and the publication of Eric's final masterpiece, Resurrecting the Champ, Truth Be Told. It isn't a story about a heavyweight legend, it's the raw, honest truth about Kincaid, the man who just wanted to feel like a winner one last time. The legacy of the champ doesn't end in the dirt. Eric and Joyce finally reconcile, finding their way back to each other and building a home on honesty. The final, haunting image shows the champ alone in his alley, shadowboxing the air, forever a king in his own mind.